From the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, this is the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, hosted by Ron Young.
Welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, live from the virtual grill room of the St. Francis Yacht Club. We hope that you and yours are sheltering in place in a safe environment. We think that the pandemic is almost over with in terms of our yacht club, and we look forward to greeting you back in our grill room as soon as conditions permit. Our speaker today is very interesting and in many ways inspirational. At age 9, he got his first chance to go sailing when the Baltimore Police Athletic League took him for a sail on a 100-foot schooner. For a 9-year-old, the feeling of freedom that sailing provided was exhilarating. The captain of the ship said, you know, you could sail around the world in a boat like this. And from that moment forward, Donald set his sights on becoming a professional sailor. Fast forward 31 years, and he's here today to tell us how at age 40, he wants to become the first African-American to sail solo, nonstop, around the world, breaking 33 ocean racing records along the way. Captain Donald Lawson, welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.
Thank you, Ron, so much for having us here. It's an honor and privilege to talk to you. As I always say, sometimes I wish I could interview you because you have so many sea stories that inspired me when I was growing up. And so hopefully I can answer as many questions as possible today, and we can go from there.
So anybody watching this will say to themselves, wait a second, Ron's in this kind of comfortable club environment, not Donald. Donald is on a boat, for heaven's sakes, and Donald's not just on any boat. You're talking to us from aboard an incredible ocean racing trimaran with a heritage all its own. You know, years ago, Steve Fawcett was a Wednesday Yachting Luncheon speaker, and Steve and I sailed on Lakota together at other of his fast rides. And now it seems like that baton has been passed on to you. Donald, tell us about your ride.
Yeah, and it's an honor to even be considered in the same breath as Steve Fawcett because, you know, one of the things for non-sailors or people who don't follow sailing significantly, Steve Fawcett set so many world records in sailing where basically, in a nutshell, he became the American representative on that international circuit. And a lot of his records still stand to this day. And it's not because people haven't tried to break them, it's just that they can't. He did such a great job. And so one of the challenges I have was to prepare myself to take on this legend. And so here we are now on board our brand new boat here.
I see the boat background's changing here and there. Where are you talking to us from? And give us a little tour.
For those who don't know, Steve Fawcett's boat, his first boat, Lakota, was a Orma 60 trimaran. And she was a very famous boat. She actually won the Route du Rhum. And then Steve got the boat. And he went on a tear, breaking records all around the world. This boat I'm on now is the last of that breed. This was the very last Orma 60 built. And she was built for Frank Camas. And for those who don't know, Frank Camas was the Decade Sailor of the Year for the country of France, which is saying a lot considering Lake Perrone and Michel Desmaillard and those guys in the same fleets. So this was his boat. And this boat won the last like 3 or 4 Orma championships. And then it set a whole bunch of records across the Atlantic. Well, in 2011, I tried to buy her. And the deal didn't go through because of an investor issue we had during the recession. So the boat was purchased by another American, and they brought it over here to the West Coast, and she was known as Mighty Merloe. And as Mighty Merloe, she went around breaking records and beating the mod 70s handily. In fact, she did so well, the Transpac record in 19, I believe it was, they finished that race in 4 days and 6 hours.
Right. Remember when that happened, you just couldn't believe the news because it was like any of us who sailed in a Transpac said, wait a minute, you couldn't have said 4 days. You didn't say 4 days, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
4 days and 6 hours. I mean, Artie Means was a navigator. Jay Davis was a boat captain, and they had Lake Perrone on board and Frank Prophet on board, and they were smoking. They beat the mod 70s handily, and they beat Comanche and those guys after giving them a head start by a couple of days. And so this boat right here is the fastest boat in this country.
Luc Perrone. Now, Luc Perrone is an incredibly famous French sailor. There's so many great French sailors. Luc Perrone and I raced against each other back in the Pro Sail 40 days. And when you say that, you know, he was on a boat and he was racing one of these to break the Transpac record, you're saying quite a bit. And you're right, Groupama 2 all of us around the world were looking at Groupama too, tear up under, Frank Camas and the boys' command. So they did a great job. So you've jumped into a genuine ocean racing, record-setting creature. So give us a little tour of the boat.
So first thing we have here is a Dodger. This was placed here so that I can sit and actually control the boat with the displays and stuff right here. So my B&G spheres are right here. My throttle control, my autopilot stuff is all right here.
By throttle control, you mean the engine throttle control. You don't
Yes.
mean the sail throttle control. Okay.
No, so everything here is manual. I do have a hydraulic system for the rig, but everything here is manual. So here we are at Corinthian Yacht Club right there. And I believe San Francisco Yacht Club's right here, right?
Exactly. That's right in the San Francisco Yacht Club, the oldest yacht club on the Pacific, founded in 1869. Now you're looking over at San Francisco.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you down in St. Francis.
Exactly right. You're looking right at the St. Francis Yacht Club right now. It's great. In your Orma 60. And then you're looking back at Corinthian Yacht Club, a great sister yacht club formed in 1886, a great tradition of racing from the Corinthian Yacht Club.
So the boat's officially going to be named Defiant, for those who don't know yet. But Defiant because, first, I'm a Star Trek fan. So Defiant was my favorite ship. And also, I like to operate off the mentality of defying the odds. And so right now, there's not very many Americans, if any, attempting records. So we're trying to represent the country in a respectful way. So I kind of look at it from the standpoint of American first, be a very American, be the world record holder for the planet, and then do for my culture as well. So let's do a tour here, shall we?
Yeah.
So here's after the boat. This is my kick-up rudder and sail-light system. And it allows me to, when I'm sailing a light wind like today, I can bring that up, reduce drag. And also if it hits something in the water, it pops right up. And then you look in the AMAs on both sides, you also have outboard rudders as well. So this is starboard helm station right here. This is my tiller I use to control the boat and steer the boat. And here's the sail sitting right here. And then you have a little bimini here that protects us from the spray. And trust me, there's a lot of spray on this boat. And you can see the salt on it. It's covered in salt. See, so on the starboard side, I have my displays. I have my my control for my mast rotation there in the green line. I have my traveler winch right here. And the traveler line, as you can see here, the red line, you follow it all the way back to the boom there. Allows me to bring the boom and the sail up to windward. So here's the mast, guys. And the mast keeps going and going and going and going. There she is, top of the mast, 100 feet in the air. And I've been on that mast, top of the mast 4 times. 4 times. And it's lots of work getting up there. So now, how's the mast controlled? Good question, Ron. The mast is controlled by these hydraulic rams here. And I can cant the rig to windward. So if I'm heeling over quite a bit, let's say 15 degrees, I can bring the mast over to windward 15 degrees to help power the boat up.
Instead of the mast being tipped over to leeward every gust, driving your leeward hull deeper in the water, as you cant the mast to weather the tip going into the wind, it decreases the loading on the leeward hull some and lifts the boat up and makes it faster.
Exactly. So the mast is always vertical for heeling over. And generally speaking, you don't sail this boat higher than 15 degrees anyways for safety reasons. So the mast is perfectly positioned right there at 15 degrees when I need it. Everyone's always asks me, this boat is a semi-foiler, not a full foiler. This boat is designed to lift the bow out of the water and drag the stern while sailing. Now, the reason why, number one, it was designed to do that is for safety reasons. You know, the faster you go in these boats, the more control you actually can gain when you have these foils. Because the foils lift the leeward bow out of the water and it turns into a hydroplaner. All right, so now let's go over here to the meat and potatoes. Now, this boat only weighs 6 tons. That is insanely light. So right here, I want to show you guys the most important part of the boat here. Under the mast, there's a titanium ball. That titanium ball has more load on it than any other part of this boat because the mast rotates on it back and forth, starboard to port, and also it goes back and forth, front to bow to stern because of the hydraulic system. And so imagine how much load is on that titanium ball. I've written down, not memorized, but trust me, it's a lot. So from there, the strongest important part of the boat actually is this main daggerboard here. Because this daggerboard goes on about 16 feet and it takes the majority of the load when you're underway. And for those who are geeky like me, you're gonna love this right here. This is called a trim tab. Now, this is one of those things from the America's Cup days that you guys had in your boats. It helps to sail the windward better. And so all I do is rotate it to probably to windward, and I can point an extra 10 to 15 degrees higher.
For those who remember, this is a flap on an airplane wing. And beginning with Intrepid in 1967, the America's Cup 12-meter rule permitted the use of trim tabs on the back edge of the keel, separate from and completely different from the use of a rudder. It became a separate foil that you could turn on the boats. What you're saying is that now you guys have effectively a trim tab on the trailing edge of your forward foil, which takes
exactly
loads. And as this boat sails, this thing deflects down 16 feet considerably.
Yes, and literally we can sail as high as you guys could on your 12 meters now. Insane, right? So you add that to the canting rig and the daggerboards. I can sail about 35 degrees off the wind now.
Yeah, so this is not a little Opti or an El Toro that goes 5 or 6 or 2 or 3 knots. This is just about the fastest hot rod ride a guy could have to sail between continents to try to set records.
Absolutely. And we're fortunate. We're really fortunate to have her. I love the boat very much and take good care of her. And so people are wondering, okay, so you're really fast, you're sailing fast. We don't carry any spinnakers on board because the apparent wind is too far forward. So we have on our force days, we have our J3 right here, which I'm going to be taking down today on a furler. That's for heavy storms and heavy wind. Then right here on this furler here, we put the J2, which is our jib. And up here, we have our J1, which is our Genoa. And we pretty much use it for reaching and upwind sailing. And off the bow, yep. And then on the foresail out there, the bow spread there, we carry our Code 0, which is our light wind, upwind sail. And we also carry our Genikers if we decide to fly them. So we have a repeat of the starboard side pretty much here. Here's our starboard hull, the foils, helm station, and shrouds. And then of course, this is our pit area right here. Looks crazy, doesn't it? Because you have lines going in every different direction, but every line matters. Every line matters.
Now, in a regular boat, in a racing boat, the guy who's in the pit, he's a little bit like a switchboard operator. The pit person, man or woman, has to know where everything goes, everything is, and pretty much everything works.
Right.
Now, this is a solo boat, which means all the incredible complexity of all the lines coming together at the pit are led aft. So
Correct.
We're all looking at how many different controls Donald has for this hot rod.
I have 15 clutches on my deck here. And so, but the good thing is that I'm actually pretty solid with the pit. What I was able to do on these trips from San Diego to San Francisco was to go shorthanded, take 2 or 3 guys with me, and pretty much they were the helms. They were my autopilot. And I spent the entire time right here. It gave me the opportunity to practice hoisting the sails, dropping boards, bringing boards up, trimming the leads, the jibs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where I'll live and operate most of the time. And I'm gonna show you guys. I installed the central tiller back. The Americans never used it for their campaign, but I installed it back because the French used it and it was very useful when you're short-handed.
Those who haven't had the great opportunity to meet you, give us your height and weight.
Yeah, so I'm approximately 5'9", and my weight is 182 on a bad day. So I'm doing about 180.
And that's 190 pounds of pretty solid muscle.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm pretty solid. I will admit I work out pretty good. But even with me by myself, the most important thing to remember is this: this boat will bite you back if you don't take care of it and seal it correctly. And so one of the things I do is I always try my hardest to keep the boat balanced. And so the key is that I'm never pushing at 100% polars. I use Expedition for my navigation software, and my polars are set at 80. And the reason why is because this is the fastest boat in the country.
What Donald is saying by that is he's not trying to sail the boat to its naval architecture to find maximum speed. He's sailing at 80% of its speed because he's going to be crossing oceans trying to set records, and you can't set a record when you're dead.
Bingo. My philosophy, I have a wife at home that I love very much, and I also plan to be here for a very long time. And so can't do that if I'm pushing the boat too hard. And so the psyche of a record breaker has to be to put yourself in a situation where the boat is optimized and the weather is optimized for what you're doing. And so when I did the Transpec coming up this fall, the mindset is I'm not looking for the biggest storm out there. I need to have winds about 20 knots as consistent as possible so I can maintain an average speed. And that's really the goal. That's part of the strategy for doing records.
Give us some of the polders for this boat.
The sweet spot for this boat, just a little secret, is around 18 knots, a breeze. So upwind, I'm doing about 10, 11 knots, a boat speed, and about 45 degrees off the wind. From there, when it comes to downwind, if I'm doing a broad reach, I generally sail about 135 off the wind. And at 135, I'm in 20 knots, 18 knots of breeze. I'm probably doing about 23, 24 knots at that stage, which we actually did a couple of days ago. We were doing, it was blowing about 25 knots, and we were doing about 18 and a half knots, slowing down, which is the mainsail and the J3 up. So my goal is to try to average my records around 20 knots. Now, if I say around 20 knots, the boat's not pushing too far and not too fast, but I'm also at a pace that allows me to set records pretty high. Look at Steve Fawcett's record for the Transpec. I believe his average speed was about 15 knots. And so if I can average 17, 18, 19, that increases my likelihood of actually breaking his records.
Donald, what are the biggest challenges that you have in this a solo circumnavigation nonstop?
The biggest challenge I have for my program is obviously fundraising, donations, the normal stuff that most people go through. The strategy itself is pretty sound. This boat is part of the strategy, which is why I want to have her. And from there, the records we're doing, we're going to do them in order. Most records have to be done at a certain time of the year. That way, the weather is optimized for where you are and what you're doing. And so as time goes on, we're going to reveal a lot of details of the strategy. One of my late friends, Lee Chestnut, who just passed a couple months ago, spent a lot of time with me doing weather routing for these records. And so I have some pretty detailed information and some binders from him about when I should go, what I should look for in certain conditions and that kind of stuff. So one of the things I'm going to do in honor of Lee, when I do the Transpec, is actually have Lee Chestnut's one of his pictures on the wall with me while I'm at my nav station, so that he's still going with me, if you will, for the records. Yeah, so the strategy is pretty sound.
How much is your program going to cost?
Our cost and budgeting is not that high because we have so much backup equipment. Like I have a spare mast, for example. So if I lose my rig, I can fit the new rig on within a week or two and be good to go. So my expenses are pretty much operational expenses and maintaining the boat, because we have enough spares, spare masts, spare foils, spare rudders, that if something breaks, I can just swap them out of the container. And so that still is pretty expensive repairs. Like if I get a ding on carbon, that's still gonna cost me quite a bit of money to fix up. And so the personnel, the expertise that we need is important. So a fun fact for you that you'll love is that I plan to haul the boat out of here in San Francisco this summer and have it on land, because you guys have such great infrastructure here between the America's Cup history you guys have had here and Steve Fawcett and all those guys who've been through here. You guys have the infrastructure. So we're planning on hauling the boat out in August and getting her cleaned up, get her debranded, rebranded, getting the sails upgraded, all that stuff here. So
Donald, if people want to follow along.
So the best way to follow our program is through my Facebook page and my Instagram page, which is Captain Donald Lawson. And we do daily updates. Pictures and videos are always there. You can send me personal messages. I get messages all the time from people who are following us, who are interested, inspired by what we're doing. So yeah, contact us.
Now, if a person wants to help out, they send you even a couple $100 works out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So donation wise, everything's through our 501c3. So if you want to send $5 or $5 million, no one's gonna stop you. You're able to donate through our link on our Facebook page. And literally the page literally says donation here. Click on it. You can put your credit card there. It's a QR code. You can do it from your bank account if you choose to. One of the other things too, I want to stress, if you have a business that you want to put a logo on the boat, you're welcome to put your logo on the boat as well. We have packages for businesses and companies as well. And so it's not as much as you think. It's not as much as you think. And so if you're interested, just reach out to us. And we'll talk to you about the logo placement, how much it would cost, how long it'll stay on there. And all of it is tax write-off.
Tax deductible, because you have a 501c3 in place.
That's correct.
When the boat's in the Bay Area, Might you take like potential supporters for a spin? What's going on?
Absolutely. So the whole point of being here is to share the experience in the boat with everyone. And so it's not every day that you get to hop on a boat like this. The most teams are really closed off. They don't like to share their boats out of fear of damage or whatever the case is. In our case, I look forward to taking out as many people as possible over the next couple of months. And so when the boat's in the water and I'm physically here, then I will take people sailing. And you get to chat it out with your kids, your spouses.
They would contact Donald Lawson via the Facebook page, right?
Yes.
And Captain Donald Lawson on Facebook, and arrange to take out a group of people, or your corporation could take out a group of people, expose some young people to this challenge, because it's kind of inspirational that a kid who grew up in Baltimore and otherwise, didn't come through the yachty scene actually is a pretty darn good sailor, because I've seen that you actually are a legit, genuinely good sailor, and that's really wonderful.
I think I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's inspiring, and it's very, very helpful for other kids, of all kids, to see that you can become a good sailor based on your own effort and your own initiative.
Absolutely. There's nothing. Only thing that limits you is yourself, and I'm grateful, but I also work very, very hard. And this by no means is this easy at all. And I don't want people thinking, oh, being a pro sailor is simple. No, it is not. And you got to show respect to the craft. And you got to respect people who came before you. That way, the people who come behind you respect you the same way. And so that's why I'm really grateful to talk to you. I love talking to you and hearing your stories.
How long would you guess it's going to take to get solo nonstop around?
Good question. So to answer your question directly, the American record sits at 107 days. The world record sits at 74 days. I think I can get around in about 60 days. Now, there's a strategy that I'm going to share later on, and your guys' minds are going to be blown when you see it. And you're like, you know what? He's actually going to probably aim for 50, but we'll see.
As I recall, you've been recently named to a position by U.S. Sailing.
Yes. So I'm now currently, for at least 1 year, the chairperson for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Because the efforts, just a little shout out to the president of the board, Rich Jefferson, he's working really hard to help U.S. Sailing expand beyond its normal membership. And he asked me to help out and participate because of my background, my knowledge, and expertise. And so now I chair that committee.
Give us the calendar for the next couple of years.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak loud just in case the audio is bad down here. So the schedule is the following. We have a Transpac record this fall. It's either going to be September or October of this year.
You mean the LA to Hawaii record? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, exactly. So you know your stuff so well. Yes. And so I'm doing the record run solo this fall. My around the world voyage is this winter coming up in 2023. And so we'll give you guys a lot more detail about where we're starting from and that kind of stuff, how to follow it in January.
Okay. In January 2023, do you mean?
That is correct. It's January coming up. Yes, that is correct. From there, that's when we go on a full-blown blitz trying to get all Steve Fawcett's records. We start in the summertime and the fall of next year, 2023. We're going to go from Honolulu to Japan. We're going to try to do the Hong Kong, the New York stuff. We're going to try to do, once we get to the East Coast, we're going to go after the Newport Bermuda, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty much, if you guys want to know my schedule over the next couple of years, type in Steve Fawcett, Wikipedia, and look at his records. And our goal will be to go after all the records Steve Fawcett set.
Now, I want to repeat something that you mentioned earlier. In record-setting attempts, the navigator, and the weather router collaborate carefully to select the start time. In fact, when Comanche goes for a transatlantic or other record, as Stan Honey has told us many times, the crew members are on like a 10-hour alert basis. And when the navigator and weather guy agree that the weather system is going to be just the one that they want, there's really only about 3 or so big weather systems that go across the Atlantic from the East Coast of America over to Europe. They're just what they want. They quickly call their crew members and they gather up, the 20 people or so that they need to go across, some of whom cannot swim at that moment. So now those guys are, in other words, using weather routing and weather planning to optimize the ability of their boat to set the record, because they sit right in the front of the big weather system that's moving across the ocean. Now, it's very difficult to go around the world, set that record at the same time as you could coordinate weather routing for the individual legs that you'll come across as you're going around the world. So the question is, which will you prioritize, the overall record or the individual records that you'll be able to encounter as you go around the world?
So the overall record of historical significance is priority one, finishing the record. In the event that, let's say, there's damage or there's an issue, whether you throttle back, this is finish the trip. That's priority one. The most important responsibility I have is to maintain the boat the entire time. From the moment I start, I'm in conservation mode of the boat. And so when you look at you mentioned Stan Honey and those guys on Comanche, they're going flat out because they're fully crewed. And so there's an issue, Kirby and those guys to step in and help each other out. Well, for myself, it's just me. So I cannot pretend that I can go pedal to the metal and survive and be successful. So the mentality is of a manager, of a person whose job is to assist the boat as she's going around the world. And by having that mentality, then we should be okay.
Let's go to another offshore issue, snapping in. How often are you snapping, or what conditions are you snapped in to, and tell us how you snap in?
So safety is like paramount, because again, I have a great wife, I have a great life, and I want to live and come home. So I have jack lines all over the boat. And for those who don't know, jack lines are pretty much straps you attach the boat in key locations where you can hook your harness onto. And that harness you can then take with you, tether yourself around the boat, and you're always hooked on. So number one, I have jack lines everywhere. I have 5 PFDs here with harnesses. And I always wear a harness at night. I always wear a harness in storm, any conditions over 15 knots of breeze. That way, if we get hit by a gust and I get bounced around, I'm still attached to the boat, and I won't fly 60 feet. Or because the boat's 58 feet wide, and I don't want to fly from the windward side to the leeward side. The dimensions of my boat, to remember, you guys, is 60 feet long by 58 feet wide by 100 feet tall, and when the boards are down, 16 feet deep. And so the safety harnesses allows me not to fly across the boat 58 feet. Second thing, I carry on board this boat 2 life rafts. One life raft is equipped for 10 people, and one's equipped for 6 people. And just being me, if I had to abandon the ship, Lord forbid, or if I had to, I have enough supplies for 10 people for X amount of days for a rescue. I also have EPIRBs on board. I have 2 satellite systems. I have a Fleet Broadband satellite system right here. I have a Iridium Go over here as well. And I have a handheld satellite phone. And so you guys are going to be able to track me and follow me the entire time I'm out there. And if I get in trouble, I can always call people if I need it.
What's your watch system going to be? When are you going to sleep?
Sleeping is my biggest challenge because I traditionally don't sleep well offshore. And so what I try to do, and it's just me shorthanded, I do 2 hours of focus and I do 30 minutes of relaxation, which includes sleep. The goal is to put 2 hours in solid. So 2 hours of focus and intensity, making sure everything's optimized, check the boat over and over again. And then I do 30 minutes decompression. Let's call it sleep.
And then you go another 120, 30 minutes all the way around the clock?
Exactly. And the reason why is because what that does for me, it allows me to get proper rest in the day. And so maybe I'll end up with 4 or 5 hours of sleep, broken up. But the big picture is that the boat's looked after and I'm looked after.
From whence will you depart? What port will you leave to go around the world?
So that's part of the secret. I can't say yet for departure around the world, but it is on the West Coast.
And which way are you going to go?
I'm going to the traditional route, downwind. So we're going to hit Cape Horn first.
Okay, so
Cape Horn first.
You're going to go west to east.
That's correct.
South, around the tip of South America, and then head
Africa, Australia, and then back up the Pacific Ocean.
right. Southern Ocean. Clearly, you've been thinking a lot about the chunks down there, sailing through the chunks.
Yeah.
And people who are sailing at speed near icebergs, anything that's in the water that's solid, always thinks about their foils underwater.
Yeah. So ice and icebergs, growlers, we call them, those are real threats. You know, a lot of boats hit those and they damage their foils or their keel. So part of my strategy for this trip is to actually avoid the South Pacific altogether. That's why I'm starting from the Pacific Ocean side on the West Coast.
Okay.
Because what will happen as I cross New Zealand, I'm turning north. And so most people, when they do the record, they start from the Atlantic side. You see what I'm saying now? Now you got me. See, and that's part of the strategy. There's more to that, but that's a big chunk of it. And so you avoid the entire South Pacific altogether.
Donald, I want to say that it's fascinating and fun to speak to you about this great adventure that you've embarked upon. And I want to encourage everyone to follow your progress on Facebook and on Instagram. So those who've got a company or a 501c3 they control, remember that you can bring your folks out on an outing. And I hope Donald will charge a little bit for such outings so he can raise money that way.
That's correct. Yes.
But I'm pleased as peaches for us to learn early about your trip. You got a great ride. What a cool boat. Those who don't remember Steve Fawcett, he was an incredibly great math whiz from Stanford who went on to make incredible amounts of money on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, became a really, really great adventurer, and ultimately lost his life. He was a balloonist as well as a sailor. He ultimately lost his life in an airplane, all darn thing. We miss him.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear the latest has taken up his name in a great cause, Donald. So on behalf
Thank you.
On behalf of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, we want to wish you the best of luck and good fortune in your attempt to be the first African-American to sail solo, nonstop around the world and break, 33 records as you go. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much. Take care.
Absolutely, Donald.
This has been a presentation of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.